morning. Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Thanks for joining us. It's always fun to do these. We've done a couple of these in the past, showing silver, showing gold, all the silver ever mined in the world, all the gold ever mined in the world. Really cool visualizations. A lot of these come from a website, The Money Project and The Visual Capitalist. They have a very creative way of putting these images together because sometimes you just need to break out the pictures. You got to get the crayons or computer CGI and just put a picture up for the people who have a really hard time understanding simple concepts and the logic that is precious metals. So let's take a look at 11 stunning visualizations of gold that show its value and rarity. This is given to us by Jeff Desjardins, February 16, 2017. The first image here is the U.S. median income as a solid gold cube compared to a house from the Monopoly board game. As you can see, this little tiny gold cube is sitting right there, just barely bigger than a house or a hotel on a Monopoly board, and it fits in the actual game space itself. That cube dollar value is approximately $56,516. And think of how small that cube is. Look at how tiny that 4.2 centimeter or 1.7 inch cube is, containing 47 ounces of gold. 47 ounces of gold. Image number 2, a gold cube worth $1 million. So there's $1 million cube of gold. It has sides that are 2/3 the length of a typical banknote. So a $1 million gold cube contains approximately 833 ounces of gold and is 11 centimeters or 4.3 inches per side. I like to use examples like this for people that say, well, I can't, I'm not going to buy gold. How would I move all that around? It would be too heavy to move my wealth around. That just shows you that most people that say that have never held, seen, or touched gold. They have no concept of the density of gold and the size relation as it is to wealth. Because nobody who's ever said that to me could afford to purchase even a half of one of these cubes. So you look how small that cube is. It's not very large at all. You could easily stash that on a bookcase or anywhere, a suitcase or a backpack. I think any of us here on the channel would have a hard time finding a friend or a relative that could afford even a fraction of $1 million worth of gold as their savings, as their hedge, or as a way to stow some money away in gold. So the excuse of it's too much, it would take up too much room, or it's too heavy and I can't move it, is a very ridiculous notion. Moving on to image number 3, all gold used for electrical connections in the Columbia Space Shuttle would be worth $1.6 million today. Right there in a little 12.8 centimeter cube, approximately 5 inches per side, $1.6 million. Let's look at President Trump's entire wealth. If he sold everything he had, including his MAGA hat, Trump's entire fortune, $3.7 billion, as a gold cube would be shorter than Trump himself. All of his wealth combined would equal a 1.7 meter or a 6-foot cube on each side, totaling $3.7 billion. And it's approximately 3.1 million ounces of gold. 3.1 million ounces. And there's the representation, the image of a large gold cube standing behind the president. Here is the entire Bitcoin market, represented as number 5 here. As a gold cube, the entire value of the entire Bitcoin market would fit in a hallway. There it is, the Bitcoin market. It's a solid gold cube compared to the height of an average man. It's about 1.8 meters. The cube is 2.7 meters or 9 feet per side. Total dollar value on this cube, $14.7 billion. $14.7 billion contains approximately 12.3 million ounces of gold. 12.3 million ounces of gold. Here's the fortune of the richest man on earth, Bill Gates. Would take up a single traffic lane. Bill Gates' net worth as a solid gold cube is around $84.9 billion. $84.9 billion contains 70.8 million ounces of gold compared to a single traffic lane There's all of his wealth, 84.9 billion. The world's entire annual production of gold. So here's all the gold mined in a year. Think of South Africa, China, Australia, all of the United States, Canada and Alaska, the whole North American continent, all of South America and the jungles there, and Central America, all the different gold pulled out of even Central Africa, all the rivers and streams and banks and hills and mountains, all the open trench mining and all that work and effort by humans, all of that diesel fuel and dirt and earth and rock crushed and smelted and assayed. For an entire year, all of that effort produces a cube of gold that can fit right there, 5.5 meters or 18 feet per side, totaling approximately 123.9 billion. And here another thing I like to think about, it's not mentioned here, but this 103 million ounces of gold is decreasing almost every year. We're seeing less and less revealed in exploration, less and less yielded in production, and an increasing amount of dollars required to extract it. So it's becoming more difficult to find, it's in more difficult places to reach and extract, and therefore it is becoming more expensive to get, and we're seeing a diminishing amount in return. So that cube could get smaller in the future. We could see that cube get smaller every year, as a matter of fact. So there's an annual production of gold. Number 8, take the 147.3 million ounces of gold out of Fort Knox, that's supposedly there, and it's only slightly bigger than what we saw mined in a year. The gold reserves held by Fort Knox as a solid gold cube. So all the gold in Fort Knox as a solid cube represents approximately $176.8 billion. That's it. All the gold in Fort Knox, $176.8 billion in gold. It contains approximately 147.3 million ounces of gold. There it is compared to the height of an average man. Fort Knox Bullion Depository. That's all the gold in Fort Knox in one cube. Now something to think about. All the gold in Fort Knox totaling $176.8 billion. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan exceeded $3 trillion now approximately. Think of the amount of liabilities and debt the U.S. holds, and then compare that and contrast it to all the gold that we have in Fort Knox. So what was the stimulus? Do you guys remember back in 08, 09 when they bailed out all the banks? Wasn't it like 750 billion? And then all the quantitative easing. I don't know what that all totaled to, but you add up the quantitative easing, and then you look at the total debt on the debt clock, the 19 trillion or 20 trillion we're almost at. It's impressive. There's not enough gold to cover the liabilities. So, and there's a slide that we're going to get to that really demonstrates that globally. 9, all the gold held by central banks. This is now all the gold held by central banks pales in comparison to the Brandenburg Gate. Look at that. That's all the gold and all the central banks in all the world. 12 meters. That's it. 39 feet on the side. 1.3 trillion. That's it. $1.3 trillion. All the gold held by all the central banks. Only 1.1 billion ounces of gold. All the gold right there by all the central banks compared to the Brandenburg Gate. That's images like this as a gold stacker kind of make me feel a little more powerful than I thought I was. Makes me feel like, you could actually see my little stack. Well, not really. It would be like little dots on the ground around that cube. But all of you out there who even if you own 1/10 of an ounce of gold, if you own 1 gram of gold, you're part of this gold community. Number 10, all the gold mined in human history. There it is. All the gold since the beginning of time, the estimated amount extracted by all human effort over the course of human history. It's a long time, 70 centuries or more of finding gold, melting it, purifying it, fashioning it into things. All the gold mined in all of human history only adds up to $6.8 trillion. That's it. About 5.6 billion ounces of gold. So when you think of the U.S. debt at 19 trillion, coming up on 20 trillion, just the debt, not even all of the outstanding liabilities. Even if the United States was somehow able to steal, beg, and borrow, and buy, and trade for every single ounce of gold on the entire planet, we couldn't cover even half of our debt. Not even half. Almost not even a quarter. Almost not even a quarter. And if you add up all the liabilities, what is it, 100 trillion they talk about? We have less than 10% of all of our debts that can be covered by all of the gold ever mined since the beginning of time. This is why gold will increase in value. This is why gold will always hold value. And at this point in history is incredibly suppressed and incredibly undervalued, and will one day, in my opinion, explode in value. Here we go, image 11, the last and final image. To pay off $63 trillion of global sovereign debts, you would need a gold cube the size of a building. You would need a gold cube that's $63.3 trillion worth in value that contains 52 billion ounces of gold. Unfortunately, this cube is 44 meters per side, 144 feet high. So it's over twice the size, and it's nearly 10 times the value. That's nearly 10 times the value and nearly 10 times the content of gold of all the gold mined in human history. Again, all the gold ever mined in history only adds up currently to about 10% of the world's sovereign debt. So just based on that alone, let's just multiply it for easy math. I'm not saying this is accurate at all, that this is how you would calculate the value of gold, but let's just say if gold is, all the gold ever mined truly is only 10% of the world's sovereign debt, and we multiplied the value of gold 10 times to be able to monetize it and pay down debt with gold, to finally extinguish debt, which gold does. It extinguishes debt. We would have to see gold prices at approximately $12,000 per ounce. $12,000 per ounce to meet the world's sovereign debt. Very interesting indeed. It does put things into perspective that gold being this rare and holding value. I hope this stimulates some thoughts in your guys' minds, motivates you to look at gold and precious metals in a different way. Hopefully you can use some of these images, some of this discussion as a visual representation when discussing the points we try to make when discussing gold, its role in extinguishing debt, and its value as part of the world economy. Thanks for joining the Junius Maltby channel for this interesting visual display, this discussion. Hope you guys are having a good, solid week. Keep stacking, be safe, and hope to see you on the next live broadcast.